So look, we know that employer branding isn't always about big budgets and big campaign launches. It's about process. It's about experimentation. It's about learning. It's about adapting. It's about scale. And this is what I like to call being in startup mode. And this is something I'm chatting with Dennis Borchers, who's from the Tractor Supply Company. And this is part of the series I'm doing with Clickify. It's all about talking with in-house practitioners about how they do employer branding day in, day out. So let's get on with the chat.
Hi, Dennis. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Chris?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good to see you. So it's good way to finish the end of the week is have a good chat about employer branding. And look, I think there's some really interesting things we're going to cover off. I think particularly this thing about employer branding being in startup mode, and I think actually that's probably something that a lot of people can associate with. Part of established organizations, but very much being in a startup mode when it comes to a particular area of the business. But before we get onto that, let's do a bit of an intro. Tell us a bit about yourself, your role, and what you do.
Yeah. So, Dennis Borchers, I work for Tractor Supply Company in human resources. I've been with Tractor for 10 years now. And my team is responsible for internal communications. So we communicate at our home office or what we call our store support center. We communicate on social media relative to employer brand and some of the things we're going to talk about today, I hope. And then we also oversee our company's internal recognition program. And so we're shaping ourselves as a team into a bit of storytellers within Tractor Supply. How do we share those unique stories we get our hands on internally and externally?
I like actually also how you've got a portfolio of responsibilities, albeit it must keep you busy. But I like this idea about you having these HR communications projects, recognition, and also employer branding. Why that kind of collection? And why is that a good thing for what you do at the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm laughing a little bit because it wasn't necessarily a plan that my team would be made up of those components. It just kind of happened. But now we view it as a happy accident. And so that's kind of one of the things that it just kind of occurred to us sometime last year that even though those three components have been historically in our company not connected together real well, there's just real basic connectivity between them. I mean, we're all three of those pieces, we're all trying to tell a story of some sort, whether it's a story about, something going on in the company or at the office, just amongst ourselves, or a story about our team members engaging in just really, amazing things or incredible acts of customer service outside of our office, but still within our company. And then that social media piece, that's the outlet that plugs us into a broader audience where public can see some of those things too. And so I can't really claim that I'm the one who discovered that brilliant connection, but it was almost like a little bit of a light bulb moment when we saw that. And we're like, this is actually a great setup for us if we can just really turn it a little bit and figure out how to leverage all these pieces together and play off each other.
I mean, that taps into the whole startup thing as well. I think there's this, maybe assumption or expectation that something has to be set in stone and planned out without it even being tried. So actually, I like the organic way that you've done it, because then actually it then makes sense when that question of employer branding comes up. It fits in the right place. And you work in terms of like connection with senior leadership. You got quite a direct route to that senior leadership, haven't you?
Correct. Yeah, I roll up directly to the head of human resources for Tractor Supply.
Nice, that's great.
Yeah,
that's and what's kind of for you, like what does startup mode mean for your employer brand in the organization?
Yeah, one of the harsh realities, because even though employer brand has been with Tractor Supply now for a number of years, let's say 3 to 5, it really only came into my space at the beginning of 2025. So we're a year old as far as how long I've had it. But the harsh reality to it is, even though there's a bit of history there, it's just a really small following. Like our social media properties don't have a ton of followers with them. And there was a little bit of, as we kind of started to dig into those and see what was making them up and what had been published, it was a little bit, maybe I would say happenstance more than directed. And so, it was like so many startup things that are new, new businesses, new initiatives. It's just taken a while to try and find its voice still. And it still is doing that with us. And we just tried to embrace that and just said, okay, it's new to our team. Let's just treat it like it's new and let's just work from there. So that means we maybe have a little bit more boldness to try some things that we've never tried before because, what can it hurt? If it doesn't work, we won't do it. If it does, we'll do more of it. And really just explore and push it in different directions that it hasn't been pushed in before.
It's really refreshing to hear when when you say that in terms of this element of experimentation and trying stuff out, because let's be honest, that is life, and that is how we all learn, is really by experimentation. There's only so much you can do in theory. I do like that organic element of things, and it's so it feels like before employer branding really was more of a formal part of what the business does, that it was ad hoc, a lack of consistency. Is that about right, you think?
I think that's very fair, and there were some really good people working on it. But like so many things, especially when you involve that social media component, we all know that there are things that are really hot on social media all of a sudden. And, sometimes you're in the right place at the right time to take advantage of them. Sometimes you're not. So a lot of good a lot of good foundational pieces have been laid in the past years, but it was just, it's been just kind of where it has been for those years. So now we're looking to figure out how do we step it up and evolve it for the future.
I mean, that's great though, isn't it? Because actually you've got it where there's that really good intent to be active, be involved in something. So the fact you already had people in the organization, from from TA people to people in store, there's that appetite to get involved. So that's such a good starting point. When it comes to kind of implementing an element of consistency to things, what did you do to make sure that consistency started to weave into what the organization was doing?
Yeah. Social media, as I'm learning every day, is reactive and malleable and changing, but I'm also a stickler for things being a certain way. So I'm trying to walk the line between those two paradigms. But that's one of the things that I felt like it was really important for us to approach when we started, in a sense, deconstructing what we had in social media and in employer brands so far, and just get it down to a very basic point where we could say, okay, what do we really have here? And does it look and does it feel like the rest of our company feels in some way? Does it feel like Tractor Supply? And it wasn't that there was anything on there that was just radically different. But again, I keep saying this, but it just wasn't quite our voice. Right. And so it was important for us to just start from the basics and say, let's just start and look at our Facebook account. Does that page reflect who we are today versus who we were 3 years ago? Are the media pieces that we're using, are they fresh? Are they up to date? Are they consistent with the brand we see in other places? So we've really taken it from a very measured and very slow approach to just kind of go media account by media account, as it were, and look at each one and take a hard look and say, what does this Instagram account say about us? Do we need to redo it, refresh it, rebuild it? We did that with Facebook. We did it with Instagram. We're now doing it with TikTok, which is a whole nother scary thing. But so we're just being very methodical as we go through.
And then in terms of recruiters as well, like giving what you're doing, working like directly with recruiters to kind of provide them that advice and that consistency.
Yeah, that's been super important because we do see ourselves as a support function for our recruiting team. And so we wanted to make sure, same thing, that all the media pieces they use, because they're just hammering out job openings, right, day after day. And we just want to make sure that all the resources they have access to are the same, fresh, consistent, accurate, and ready to go for them.
Right. And actually, look, I think it wouldn't be right to not talk about technology. Yeah. So I think let's talk about the role of technology here. And I think, there's a shout out to Clickify, who are, this is one of the series of episodes that we're doing in partnership with Clickify, and it's great to be able to chat with, with yourself, who's worked with Clickify along with other people as well. But what role has technology played in terms of giving that guidance and helping with that consistency?
Yeah, one of the things, and again, you mentioned Clickify, and they've been a great partner for us. One of the things that has really allowed us and my team to better support our recruiting and talent acquisition teams is leveraging Clickify's, like their online media libraries and those centralized repositories for assets, media, all those things. Because just to piggyback on what I said a minute ago, we've been able then to go in and re-examine all of those pieces and just update them and refresh them. And for our recruiting teams, then they don't have to worry about it at all. They go in, their workflow has not changed one bit. They're still doing exactly what they're used to doing, but now everything is more up to date, more current. As an example, we have several different media pieces out there they can use to promote job openings, and that none of them were incorrect, but there were a few where you could see if it was perhaps a job opening in one of our warehouses, for instance. The photo was a picture of somebody sitting in our office. And it wasn't wrong, but we were like, that's not exactly the best fit for that type of job. So we were able to go in there, give them more options to look at, allow them still the flexibility to update it for whatever the particular job is. And so they've got a more robust resource library available to them that we've been able to help with.
That's really nice. I think there's a few things there, which is I think you're able to see everything in one place, which then means you kind of get to have that kind of helicopter view on all the content that's out there, which then it makes it easier for you to then, look at that consistency element. But also on the flip side, you've got these recruiters who are they just need to fill roles. Yeah. And that speed is understandable and right. Yeah. So to make it easy for them just to go to one place and know that actually there's no second guessing the use of that, because they've got it from a place that's come from you guys, also being a help for them, because you're spending time looking at the overall piece and going, well, actually, let's adjust that. So your thing about, in the warehouse, but they're having in the office, photography makes absolute sense. Someone's going to see that and like, well, one of the reasons I like working in a warehouse is because I don't want to be stuck behind the desk. Those simple things, isn't it? But actually, it makes all the difference. So I really like that. I mean, what is for you? What difference have you seen? What's kind of been the impact of having this kind of under your, up your sleeve and for the business to use?
It has, I think it's made us a more valuable partner. And so I'm always talking to my team about that. Like what can we all do to add value to ourselves, and make it more essential is not really the best word, but to make us more essential to the running of the business, And so that's been a really kind of obvious impact from us just, again, leveraging the Clickify platform, giving them updated tools, because now they know, you kind of alluded to this in your comments, but they know that now they can trust us to provide them with resources that are, these are approved, these are ready to go. I don't have to think about or second guess or question. And it also, though, puts us in a position where we stray a little bit into the design realm even with that. So they can come to us as needs change. or as brand new positions open up that we've never had before. And we can sit down and talk to again, our recruiters primarily about, like, well, tell me, is there a specific need there? Some new piece of media or asset you need? We can build that. We can work with Clickify to build it. So it kind of gives us a little bit more, a few more tools in our belt that people see value in.
I just reminds me, I look back at my career and I think about the times where you've had to try and build your own kind of system to try and make life easier for, your internal clients, and lots of links to folders, and it can get messy quite quickly, can't it? So I like what you say about kind of being there as that advisor and being helpful, because it does tap into the whole thing about what's in it for the individuals you're helping. It's really nice to be able to say, we have these tools for you to use. I really like the trusted advisor piece. I mean, look, goodness me, that could be a whole other episode, but I think, we'll save that for later perhaps. But I think one of the things I was really interested in as well was when we were talking last week about, in preparation for this, is about the whole thing around employee advocacy. Now, actually, kind of, you have employee advocacy already in place without it technically being employee advocacy, haven't you? You tell me a bit about that, about some of your people on the ground who are doing content.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a very culture-driven company, and so this is a little bit of backstory leading into the answer to your question. And we really highly value our culture, and we always talk about, we're mission-driven, we're values-driven. Those things are very important to us. Being real is very important to us at every level of the organization. And so, as we were kind of combing through last year, primarily, like, where are we with all of this? Like, what voice are we portraying? What do our accounts look like? What impression are we giving? What we found very easily is that there are a number of Tractor Supply team members out there who are so proud of what we call living the lifestyle of Tractor Supply that they're already out there making really impactful content and really real content, because they are literally, they might work in a store for 20 hours a week, but then they go home and they own a farm. And so they're buying the things at the store, taking it home and feeding their cows or chickens or whatever. And so they're generating content all the time about, a new calf was born, or look at this stuff I bought at Tractor Supply for my, they're doing commercials for us. So one of the things we did last year is we low key decided, let's see if we can really connect with some of these team members, the ones who are generating a pretty fair amount of content on their own. And we just, in our team, we've called them ambassadors, but really it's a very loose concept where we've just reached out to them. We just said, your content is great. We love it. You're representing the brand the right ways. Are you okay if we just have this understanding where we just repost your content on our company branded channels? And so we've got about 10 or 12 of those team members right now, all across the country in different walks of life. And that's really about the extent of it so far. They're excited to just keep doing what they do. We're excited to get more authentic content that you can't buy that content, right? The real authentic stuff is so valuable. And and so they get a little bump from us. We get real good content from them to share and mix up. And as we continue that, I think our goal going forward is to continue to expand that very loose program to, maybe 20 or so folks in the next year, but continue to do that and search for that content that really talks about who we are authentically.
Yeah, lovely. It's because there is obviously a role for, there's branded content, which is your templated content that has a certain, look and feel and tone. But then there's the other branded content, which is just the living, breathing experience of, the organization. So I do really like that. And how has it been? How have you, in terms of the employees, when you were sharing their content, how have they reacted to that? And also, externally, how have you seen the reaction to that kind of content being added into the mix on your channels?
Those are all the pieces really right there, right? How does all that work together? Responses from our team members have been great. I mean, they're excited because for them, it's nothing special, right? They are literally like just telling about their day, you know. And so, but for us, then you have to kind of spotlight them a little bit and say, "That's great. Let's elevate it a little bit." Kind of pair it up with Tractor Supply employer brand as an entity. They're excited to feel special and called out in that way. Um, the the internal reaction piece is something that I'm very interested in and kind of personally trying to be a little bit more involved in. So we mentioned that part of my job is to roll up directly to the head of HR, which is great, by the way. But part of the way I leverage that role is with her and her team. There's a opportunity there for me to simply say in like a weekly email, here are 5 or 6 different stories that we have highlighted on our social media channels that you all might want to check out and follow or like or repost or whatever the case is. So now what we're trying to do is then bring in our leaders who have, a huge number of followers depending on their role, and now they're adding their voice to the mix and leveraging it and pushing the story out even further. But overall, this is a little bit hard to explain. Inside Tractor Supply, we are always excited to hear stories about one another and about our team members. It sounds really contrived, but we love it. We love hearing stories about our team members, and like they live on a farm and they work at the store or they drive an hour to work because they like that. We eat that up. We love hearing about it. So it's just that challenge, right? How do you take all that stuff we love to hear about that people love to say and really elevate it a little bit?
And actually, I think that's great because you take what you talked about and then you replace that with job vacancies that we're promoting on social media. There's no comparison, is there? Because I think there's that thing about it's great because actually HR in a way, gets a real sense of what's going on in the organization, through looking at this kind of content. And that's only going to increase when you roll out this further and get more, ambassadors or advocates involved. So it does have that dual purpose. And it's really interesting. Not surprising, given you're in HR comms as well, is you see the value in the internal piece, not just looking at it as an external piece there. That's great. So let's go back to this thing about rolling this advocacy piece out. So there's an element of here, kind of, again, like organic approach, but seeing there's potential, trying it out, testing it, and going, there's something in this. Let's roll it out more. How are you going about doing that to kind of build a bit of a system to try and scale this employee generated content?
Yeah. A lot of it right now is still, I would just describe it as grassroots or organic. We're really just trying to make we're trying to start with making real connections. So we're not to the point, and we may never want to pursue this, but we're not at this point where we're sending out, for instance, an email, right, to 1,000 team members. Hey, if you're interested in being a partner, like respond back and let us know. We think there's a lot more value right now in, have we met these team members somehow, right? Did we connect with them in a different location? Did we go into a store? For instance, we have multiple opportunities throughout the year where our training team brings in team members from across the country to our office, and they go through some sort of development or training class. And so we have this opportunity, once or twice a month, to just like go down and talk to them right there too and build those connections. So at this point, we're still more inclined to, let's make some real connection and real relationships first, and then build it from there. And not that we would exclude anyone, but it does allow us to be a little bit more, directed about Like who do we really want to connect up with, and who do we really see making the content, the type of content that speaks to us as a brand and a value and a culture.
And that's, I think, because it would be very easy just to go, let's roll this out across the whole organization. I think you're right. You do lose that element of relationship. You're literally going to people. We like what you do. Yeah. We just love to be able to share some more of that. Would you fancy getting involved? This is what other people have done. Would you fancy doing something as well? So I like that. I number of times seen examples of other organizations doing employee advocacy programs where they say much better to have 60 advocates and it go well than have 3 times as many and for it to fall flat on its face. Again, I like this element of iteration that you're doing, which is I think that's the right way to do it, isn't it? I think because it'd be easy to try and go, right, we need to, roll out a program across the whole organization. And all of a sudden the expectation rises as well, even to yourself as well, because you go, right, we're going to really go for this, roll it out to everybody. And that's quite a big ask, isn't it? So I like the gradual piece there. And ultimately, if you're growing it from 20 to say 30 to 40, that's still a significant increase. And you're getting so much more content that is directly from these individuals.
Yeah, we've been I'm very fortunate to have leadership in place that kind of understands all those pieces, right? And has allowed us the leeway to kind of take it slow and be very decided in the way we move forward. So it's been great. So the reason I'm laughing is because I think probably like a lot of people, TikTok has been a huge question mark for us for years, right? With all their struggles and changes and whatever. And so, but a lot of that's settled for us. And so anyway, we felt like you and I were chatting about this. Last week was one of our annual company meetings, thousands of people in one place here in Nashville. And we just decided, well, if there's ever a time to, if you will, relaunch TikTok, this is probably the time. And so we bit the bullet. And I, who have never even been on TikTok before, I got on there and I made a TikTok every day of the meeting. Nothing flashy, I hope nobody's watching this and thinks they're going to go on there and see the best, video they've ever seen. That's not the case. But we just felt like, let's just jump in here. Again, we're trying new things. And so let's just kind of relaunch this. We're here again on this platform. Let's just make some content and see what happens with it. So I'm the one who fell on my sword for that and made the videos and got him out there and just got us a presence on there. But even since then, that was only last week. Even since then, my team is already working on, let's put some other content up there. We actually have a series of internal podcasts that we do about like who does different jobs in the building, explaining those a little more. And so we're working on re-editing those for a more public audience and putting those on TikTok. So we're out of the gate and running with that one, and we'll see what happens with it.
We're not using any other things, any other functionality on Clickify to help you do what you do.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're using Clickify for is their kind of sentiment analysis tools and giving us a vibe on just how we're being perceived as a company. And the next iteration of that is we want to use their built-in AI Clio to help us generate some content around that. And I think the idea there is that we would take that so their AI will help us understand what are some of the main points of discussion for our team members, perhaps, at any given point in time. And so then we can generate some content that speaks to that, because it's legitimate that, we have, for instance, we have a lot of benefits available to our team members, but they may or may not be aware of all those. And so if the sentiment comes up and they're questioning or they're thinking about, I don't know, going back to school, right? And how will I do this? How can I afford this? And they may not know we have, for instance, tuition reimbursement benefits. And so we can then take that and just talk about, here's some benefits we have. We can give examples, supporting information too, and hopefully better educate both current team members, but then also potential future team members too, who might be looking for a job opportunity.
I mean, when I look at Clio, and when Amit's been telling me about Clio as well, is that I go back to my past self of like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, where it's like, wow, to have something that can help me understand more about what people are saying about the organization, but also to help develop a content strategy and what should avoid those blank page moments, I think is great. And it all goes back to for me, it goes back to this thing about in-house teams just being able to do more. And I think to be able to lean on that is fantastic stuff. Well, look, really appreciate the chat. Let's should we just do the classic few takeaways? You touched on a number of great takeaways, I think. So if we're thinking about, say, 2 or 3 pieces of advice you think is worth people going away in and going, okay, if I want to take on board some of the things you've talked about and actually turn them into action, what advice would you give?
Maybe I would say, don't be afraid to look at where you are as a startup moment. Because again, whatever you're involved in your program, it may be tremendous, but there's always an opportunity potentially to elevate it or to just make it into something that is even better than it's always been. And so it's kind of that idea of relentless dissatisfaction. Like let's just not be content with how it is, even if there's tons of followers. Let's always be thinking about how does it get better. And I've seen value in that for us because it does feel like, when we say we're going to treat it as a startup, it just gives us this freedom to, like you said, to experiment and play around with some things. And, again, if it didn't work, it didn't work. And if it worked, let's try it again and see what happens. So.
Lovely. I think that's a great way to end. It's good. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. And if anyone's interested in finding out more, then go somewhere near the comments and be able to get access to the article alongside this episode. You can also listen to it as well, or if you're listening to it, you can watch it on YouTube. And of course, look, get onto LinkedIn, get in touch, with Dennis if you've got any questions. As always, more than happy to continue the conversation about this. And thanks very much, Dennis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. It's exciting for me. I'm glad to do this.